I woke up this morning and was pondering what could I share with you all as far as how to better improve your hormonal balance. And what occurred to me is the routine I have in the morning that not everybody will necessarily be aware of, and especially not necessarily aware of the reasoning behind it. So, when it comes to hormonal balances, you have really two key areas, and this is true for all of life, honestly. The physical component, meaning your nutrition, your diet, your movement, that sort of stuff, and the emotional component, um, which really ties in with stress, which ties in with cortisol. And rather than spending too much time talking about cortisol, I'll just give you a brief overview of it and explain how it ties in with my morning routine and hot flashes and low energy. So let's get started. Um, Without getting too far into the depths of what all this cortisol does, I will just suffice it to say for the moment that it helps to balance anytime there's too much stress, and stress can come in two forms. Um, Internal stress, meaning the stress that we create with our thoughts, our beliefs, our behaviors, and then external stress, which can come in the form of diet, um, pollutants, things like that. The reason why cortisol is so important and it relates to the morning routine is because cortisol is what gets you going in the morning. It's what boosts your energy to hop out of bed. So if you've been experiencing a dragging feeling when it's time to wake up, and I don't mean from lack of sleep, but just as a routine, or you wake up kind of brain foggy, that's a good indication that your cortisol levels are not optimal. And one of the bigger players in hormones, and doesn't necessarily always get considered a hormone, is insulin. Insulin is kind of the bully on the block. If insulin's not happy, nobody's happy. Cortisol bows to the insulin level. So if your blood sugar gets too low, cortisol comes in and saves the day. If you don't have enough stores of glucagon, a storage form of glucose in your liver, and that can be impacted by a number of things, and that's a different video. So you wake up in the morning and your glucagon levels are depleted from having been asleep all night or for whatever reason, and um, your cortisol levels are trying to pump out a bunch of cortisol to not only balance the blood sugar levels but also get your body moving in the right direction. So then eating becomes very important, and eating within a reasonable time. If you are in a state of your cortisol levels being in a chronic level of stress, um, for a number of reasons, then eating and what you eat within a reasonable amount of time of getting up, even if you don't consider yourself a breakfast person, is important, because otherwise your cortisol levels continue to struggle. So getting that insulin level happy, but doing it in a way that isn't so drastic that it cranks out even more insulin and then it crashes. And then you're going to end up with hot flashes. Um, so as your cortisol levels are having to constantly create this sense of balance and reduce the inflammation, your body is actually doing you a favor with the hot flash, even though it doesn't feel like a favor, by alerting the system there's a problem. And so choosing a breakfast that's higher in protein, lower in carbs, especially carbs that are um, quick to raise the blood sugar, which they would refer to those as uh, high glycemic index. Um, so avoiding those when you first wake up in the morning, if you're dealing with hot flashes and low cortisol levels, um, then that will benefit your blood sugar being more balanced throughout the day and create less hot flashes, more energy, and more focus. Because, uh, little known fact to the common person, 80% of the glucose, in other words, the blood sugar in your body, that you take in is used by your brain. So if you're feeling brain foggy, that could have something to do with it for sure. That your insulin levels are not happy, and so eating smaller meals throughout the day, higher in protein, um, and yes, you still need the carbs, but choosing carbs that are based on your metabolism. And that's something I can help you learn more about, is whether you are a fast burner or a slow burner, and also potentially other um, contributing factors that reduce your body's ability to manage cortisol levels. But insulin is typically the biggest one. Like I said, it's the bully on the block. Um, Going through menopause or perimenopause, your other hormones are fluctuating a great deal, also. But that's a video for another. That's the story for another video. I hope this has been helpful. I encourage you to start introducing more proteins into your breakfast. It doesn't necessarily need to be high fat. Um, Fat does help carry your blood sugar longer because it's slower to break down. Protein's the most satiating, and carbs are the quickest release, which is not necessarily something you want if your blood sugar is struggling, unless you are desperate, like in a um, hypoglycemic state, and you're really, starting to bottom out. But try not to get there because that just causes more stress, more cortisol, more insulin imbalance, more hot flashes, more energy, more lack of energy, I guess would be the right way to say that. Okay, so recap: morning routine, wake up within about 30 minutes, get a meal that doesn't include a bunch of high carbs, does include a decent amount of protein and a reasonable amount of fat. And of course, that's going to vary per person. Um, if any of this appeals to you and you'd like to understand better how to both reduce your cortisol levels from a physical perspective as well as an emotional perspective, which is the bigger player of the two, um, please reach out. My business name is Love Yourself Life Coaching. I would love to help you create more focus, more energy, less stress, and in general, just more peace in your life. So, thank you for listening. Make it a great day.